Hello students, and welcome to the e-learning program initiated by Shri Gyanmanjari Vidyapeeth for the students of Standard 9, in which we are learning the subject of English. Students, this is the third lecture for chapter number 5 of supplementary reading, that is Moments. Name of the chapter is The Happy Prince, and author of this chapter is Oscar Wilde. As this is the third lecture, let us have a quick recap on what we learned in the previous two lectures for this chapter. In the previous lectures, we learned that in the starting of the chapter, we learned that the statue of Happy Prince, it was atop quite a high place and also on top of a column made on the high ground. A column was made, and on top of that column pedestal, and on that pedestal the statue of the Happy Prince was there. The statue was made up of metal, and on top of that metal it was gilded with gold, and for his eyes he had two bright blue colored sapphires, and on his handle of the sword, that is hilt, he had a big shining bright red ruby. So from far away it will look as if whole of the statue is made out of gold, because he is a happy prince. And about the Happy Prince we come to know when a little bird he flies into that city in the night time. It is about to be winter, and that bird is flying from Europe to the Arabian parts. So there will be warm winter over there, and he wants to go to Egypt, which is a desertic area, but it has that Nile river flowing through it, which at least makes lots of area of Egypt quite green, and Nile has lots of water. So the birds, these migrating small birds, they have flown from Europe, which has quite harsh winter with lots of snow, and these small birds cannot survive in that harsh weather. So they migrate, when it is winter time, they migrate towards Egypt and spend the winter in Egypt, which is quite mild, and then when winter is over they again fly back to Europe. So this bird is a lonely bird flying from Europe to Egypt, because the rest of the group of the swallow bird, they have flown some 6 weeks ago. That means 1.5 months ago they have flown, but for some unknown reason the bird is left behind and now is flying all alone. It is night time, and the bird arrives in the city of the Happy Prince, and it is searching for a small and comfortable place to spend the night, and luckily it sees that big statue of Happy Prince, and it's shining even in the night with gold. And so the bird decides to spend its night between the 2 feet of the statues, which will save him from cold winds, and if there is rain it can save him from rain also. But as the bird was preparing itself to go to sleep that night, suddenly a big drop of water falls on him, and he looks up. There is no cloud in the sky. He is wondering why such a big drop of water has fallen on him. As he is just thinking about it, another drop of water falls on him, and he gets angry at the statue. What's the use of a golden statue which can't even protect a small bird from the rain? So as he was thinking, on the third drop falls him, and then he looks up at the statue and says, "Who are you?" Yes, the Happy Prince says he is Happy Prince, but at the same time the bird can see that tears are rolling down his eyes and on the cheeks. Then the bird asks, "Why, if you are a happy prince, why are you crying?" So the Happy Prince tells his story that he was born a prince in the nearby palace, and all through his life he was quite happy, because sorrow was not allowed to enter the palace, and everybody kept him happy. He was always smiling and happy. He didn't know about the pains of the world, and he lived happy and he died happy, right? So he didn't know about it. But now when he is dead, in order that people remember him, in his memory, people have put up a statue over here, quite far away from the city and quite high. Now when he is a statue, he is made out of metal, and he does not have a human heart. He has a heart made out of metal. Here, from here, he can see the ugliness of his city, the poverty of the people, and the suffering of the people, the pain of the people he can see from here, and it can't stop him from crying. Automatically, tears roll down his eyes when he sees people, his own people, in pain, which he never knew of. So he asks the bird to help him somehow. The bird is quite exhausted, tired, and it wants to go to sleep so that next morning it can start flying. But the happy prince asks him that he sees, he sees in a street very, very far from here, he can see a small house, poor house, and from the window he can see a lady, a woman. She's a seamstress and she's working with needle and thread, and she is making a gown for the one of the maid of honor of the queen. And because of continuously working with needle and thread, the hands have become red and they have become rough because continuous use of needle. And there is a small boy in the corner in the bed, and he is having fever and is asking for oranges because he's thirsty also and is very hungry. But the seamstress, the woman, she's not having money to buy him some food or medicine, and that is why she is working day and night to finish the gown so that she can get some money. Those people are suffering, and because of that there were tears in the eyes of the happy prince, and the happy prince asks the bird to pluck out the ruby from the hilt of his sword and give it to the woman. So the bird agrees, and in that night it picks out that ruby, takes it in the beak, and flies all the way to the other end of the city to the woman and places the ruby near a thimble on the table and flaps its wings near the face of the boy, makes him comfortable so that the boy finds some sleep, rest, and comes back and tells the story to the whatever happened to the happy prince. And by doing a kind and good work, both of them feel happy, and the bird is already tired of the long day's flight, and in the night also it works. So while thinking about it, it went to sleep. Next morning it just roamed around the city, various parts of the city, visiting all the monuments, seeing whatever is worthwhile, and in the night it comes back to the happy prince and saying goodbye to him. It wants to go away, but the happy prince has again seen something and is very much moved by it and wants the bird to help. But now the bird doesn't want to stay. It wants to go away to Egypt because winter is coming, and if it stays behind then it will get killed. So it wants to fly away, but the happy prince requests the bird to stay with him for one night, because far away in a house, on the top of the house in the garret, he sees a young man. He's a writer and he is about to become unconscious because there is no wood so that he can have fire. He hasn't eaten for days. He is very hungry, and because of the cold his fingers have become numb. He is not even able to write. He's starving because he has no money. He has to finish the drama that he is writing so that he can give that drama to the director of the theater and earn some money. So will you help him? So again the bird is moved because it's generous, it's kind, and it wants to help the happy prince. So it says, okay, now give me one more ruby so that I can give it to that young man and I can go ahead towards Egypt. Now we continue with our today's lecture. Alas, I have no ruby now. I had only one ruby on the hilt of the sword. That was the only ruby I had. So now I don't have anything like ruby. But my eyes are all I have left. Both the eyes, They are two bright blue colored sapphires. They are very costly and expensive precious stones. So I just have my eyes left. Both of them are very, very expensive. So you can take one of them and give it to the young dramatist, young playwright, with which you can sell that sapphire, and he can have some money with which he can buy some wood for keeping him warm and buy some food to survive. They are made of rare sapphires. Now, where did they find the sapphires? Which were brought out of India 1,000 years ago. So we can see over here also, when Oscar Wilde is writing, yes, at that time also, whole of the world knew that if you want big, precious stones, rubies, emeralds, sapphires, you have to come to India. So in India, they were dug out thousands of years ago, and now they have reached over here somehow, and I have that sapphire as a replacement for my eyes, right? So I have those precious sapphires which were brought out of India 1,000 years ago. He ordered the swallow to pluck out one of the sapphire and take it to the playwright. So now we can see the generosity of the prince. He is so moved by the pity, by the suffering of the people, that he wants to sacrifice himself, but because now he has a metal body and those precious things that are stuck on him, so he wants to even part away with those things to make people happy. So he asks the swallow, the little bird, to take out that sapphire and give it to the young playwright so that he can sell and make money out of it. He will sell it to the jeweler and buy firewood and finish his play, says the happy prince. Happy prince says that if you pluck out the sapphire, which is my eye, you can pluck out one of my eye, which is a sapphire, and give it to that young playwright, then he can sell it to the jeweler and get some money with which he can buy firewood to keep him warm and buys him some food for energy so that he can finish off the play very well and very soon, and he can sell it to the director of the theater. So, dear prince, I cannot do that because the ruby was taken from the hilt of the sword. But now, even though the eye is fake, it's not a real eye, right? In place of the eye, the sapphire is there. But we have seen in the story that the prince, his soul is still in the statue, and he uses those two sapphires to look around over the city and see the sorrowness, the suffering of the people, and it's very painful to even think to pluck out somebody's eyes. So the bird is not ready to do that, and he says, I cannot do that, dear prince, I cannot do that. And he started to weep because from inside it is feeling very bad for the prince, that the prince wants to help the people and he is so much ready to even compromise with the precious parts of his body. The eye, it's very precious. He wants to give away that also. He is ready to be blind with one eye, but he is ready to help people. Seeing the kindness and the generosity of the prince, and if he plucks out that eye, it will hurt the prince. He will become half blind. So he's crying, swallow, swallow, little swallow, says the prince, do as I command you. Just do what I tell you, because kings and prince, they are given to these things. Yes, they give orders. So you do just I tell you. Don't know the reasons why I'm doing this. You don't know the reasons why I'm doing this. The kings don't have to give reasons for whatever they are doing. They just command and they ask the people below them to do what he says, because each and everybody doesn't understand the meaning behind the command, and he doesn't have to give the meanings. He just gives orders. So just do as I tell you. So the swallow plucked out the prince's eye and flew away to the young man's garret. Garret, as we described last time, it's that triangle on top of the house. It's actually that wooden planks that hide the triangle on the top part. That's called the garret. And flew away to the young man's garret. It was easy enough to get in because there was a hole in the roof through which the bird could get in. And we know that the young writer, he was almost unconscious. So he was not feeling well because he had not eaten for days, and he was in a state of about to go or about to be unconscious. So the young playwright, he couldn't hear the bird enter from the top. He couldn't hear the bird perching on the table. Through this, he darted and came into the room. The young man had his head buried in his hands, so he did not hear the flutter of the bird's wings. So the young man, he was about to go unconscious because he was feeling nervous and he didn't know what to do. His fingers were feeling numb, as if there is no energy in them, and he can't control his fingers because of the cold atmosphere in the night, and he did not know what to do. So he has buried his head in his hands because now he will not be able to finish the play because there is no warmth in the room and he can't work with his fingers, and he is desperate to earn some money so that to survive. He doesn't know what to do, so he has buried his head in his hands, and he didn't hear the bird flying in from the rooftop and perching on the table. And when he looked up, he found a beautiful sapphire lying on the withered violets. So when he did look up, he was surprised to find that on the glass he had some withered violets, and on top of that a bright blue sapphire was shining over there. I am beginning to be appreciated. He thinks of something else because he doesn't know that a bird came in and put that sapphire. So he says, maybe it's one of my fan, a lover of my work, who must have come in and placed that sapphires quietly and went away. I am being appreciated for my work. I am being welcomed for my work. People praise me. He cried, this is from some great admirer. Admirer, a person who likes you or a fan. This is coming from some great fan of mine or a great admirer. Now I can finish my work. Now he immediately understands this is a very big precious stone. I can sell it to a jeweler, get some money, and then I can buy some wood, firewood, which will keep me warm so my fingers don't get numb. They will be alive, having energy, because then I'll have food also with the money that I have from selling this sapphire. And he looked quite happy. So the bird must be watching from the hole from the rooftop, and he, after delivering that precious sapphire to the young playwright, flies back to the happy prince and must have told him the story, whatever happened. Now, after telling the story, again exhausted, it went to sleep because it's night time, and he goes to sleep. Next morning he wakes up and goes towards the harbor. Harbor is a place where ships come very near to the land, and it becomes very easy for offloading or loading the goods and material on the ship, or taking it from the ship on the land. So that's the harbor. So he goes to a harbor where lots of ships are there. You can see it's a parking place for the ships. He sat on the mast of a large vessel and watched the sailors working. Mast, as we know, it's a big log of wood. Yes, it's quite tall and it's made from a single log of wood, and it's the usually the center pole of the boat. There might be small logs for where we can attach small sails, which will have lots of wind in it, and it will make the ship move. So he sat on the mast of one of the large vessel over here is the boat, and watched the sailors working. I am going to Egypt, cried the swallow. Now, cried the swallow, here we have to understand that it is the bird sound it is taking out. Nobody understands bird sound. Nobody knows what the swallow is speaking or saying or crying out to them. So the bird is very happy that I have finished all my work today and now I am going to go towards Egypt. So it is crying out loudly and telling it to the sailors, and the sailors don't mind it. A very clever use of words is made by the author over here, but nobody minded. Why should anybody mind? Because nobody understands the swallow's language. Yes, for them it is just a bird making sound on the top of the mast of the ship, and it happens on a regular basis, on a daily basis. Lots of birds come over there and sit on the mast, and they keep on making sounds. So just like that, the swallow over here also is making sound. It is telling something to the sailors, but the sailors, because they don't understand, they don't mind. And why should anybody mind if a young bird is flying towards Egypt? And it stayed over there, the harbor, maybe visited a few places here and there. And when the moon rose, he again flew back to the happy prince to say goodbye. I have come to bid you goodbye, he cried. Now he's very happy, and here it has to speak loud because the statue is quite huge. So it's crying loudly because it's happy, and it's telling goodbye to the happy prince. Again, this happy prince has another request to make. Swallow, swallow, little swallow, said the prince, will you not stay with me one night longer, just one night more? I have a little work for you, some small work for you. Now the swallow, it's very sincere, and he sincerely tells the young prince, right? Now why is the little swallow becoming so serious? Why is it not ready to stay one more night with the prince? The answer is the dialogue given by the little swallow. It is winter, and the snow will soon be here. He is still in Europe. He has not left Europe. So it is already, winter is fast approaching. And before you know it, snow will be falling. In Egypt, the sun is warm. On the opposite, during that same time in Egypt, because it's a desert, because snow doesn't fall over there, the winter is warm. In Egypt, the sun is warm. Even though in winter the sun will be very warm, it will heat up the earth, and we all will stay warm over there. We cannot stay in the snow because small birds, they have difficulty in finding a proper shelter to pass the whole of the winter, because in the European continent, what happens is winter starts right from August, September, and very cold winds start blowing, and sometimes when it rains, it's icy rain which falls. Still you'll find some birds, but then most of the birds, they start flying here and there in search of warmer parts, because when it snows very heavily. So October, November, December, January, February, sometimes even till March, snow keeps falling, and 6 months the birds, first thing is they don't find any good shelters because the trees have already shed their leaves. The tree is bare without any leaves. Everywhere they don't find houses, because if these birds are living in the forest, where will they find houses or some cozy comfortable place? So they will have to literally stay out in the cold, which is very, very hard, because there will be sub-zero temperatures, and these birds cannot survive over there in the snow. So they run away, migrate. So soon there will be snow over here also, and then what will I do? I cannot survive, I cannot live in that very harsh cold weather. In Egypt, on the opposite side, the sun is warm, so everything, whole of the earth over there is warm, and there are green palms. Green suggests greenery, because near the banks of the Nile River, lots of greenery is there. Otherwise Egypt, it's quite bare, barren land, desertic land. But near the Nile River there will be lots of green grass, there is a lot of green trees, especially date and palm trees. So there will be lots of green palm trees, and the crocodiles, they lie in the mud and look lazily about them. Nile River is famous for crocodiles, right? It will come on the banks, open its jaws like anything, and keep bathing in the sun. It's a very good sight over here, and we happily pass our winter. अभी small bird है, कितना दिन जिंदा रहेगा? 1-2 season काफी है, right? इधर उधर जाने में पूरी जिंदगी निकल जाती है, right? So I need to go over there. I cannot survive in this one. And winter is very fast approaching. You every day I come to you and you tell me to spend one more night. If I do keep on doing like this, snow will come, and then because the bird has to fly in the air, air will be very cold and it will just die in that high air about the height. It will be still colder and the bird will just drop from the sky because it will be dead in that cold wind. In the square below, but the happy prince is just not ready to listen to any excuse given by the little bird. It says in the square below, square जैसे हमारे सर्कल होते, that is an open space, right, where lots of roads come and meet. तो हमारे पास बीच में एक बहुत सी जगह होती है जहाँ हम सर्कल बना लेते हैं, गार्डन बना लेते हैं, right, recreation park, something like that, where old people, children, they can come and enjoy in the evening. It's the same thing, but only thing is it's square, right? So in the square below, that is where lots of roads come and meet, and it's an open space. In the square below, there stands a little match girl. Match girl in those countries, the little poor kids, they sell these matchboxes, etc. on the street and earn money and help their family. Matchbox का price कितना होता है? Nothing more. But then if they sell a little bit, they'll get some money as profit and they can hand it over to their parents because parents are in need of money. So match girl is a girl who sells matches on the street. There stands a little match girl. She has let her matches fall in the gutter. In those days, underground gutters were not there and gutters were in the open, and by mistake, or she allowed the bundle of matchboxes which she had, she allowed it to fall in the open gutter. Now the matchboxes have become wet, they are of no use. Even if you dry them, they will not be of any use, and they are all spoiled. Now they will, when you strike, they won't give a spark, they won't burn, and they won't light. Her father will beat her if she does not bring home some money, and that is why she is crying. She is in a state of misery. She is a small girl and she doesn't know what to do. Now, it's very cold and the girl is feeling that cold because she is in the open and she is not able to handle those matchboxes, because here also we see that because of the cold, the hands and the fingers, they have gone numb, and she doesn't even know when that match boxes slipped out of her hands and fell into the gutter. Now she has realized that all the matchboxes are in the gutter, and now she hasn't any matchboxes to sell, and that's a loss. Instead of bringing money to the house, she has made a loss, and if she goes empty-handed without any money, then the father, he is going to beat up that little girl, and that is why that girl is full of fear and she is crying. On top of that, see the state of the girl. She has no shoes in this cold weather. She is without any shoes. In those days in European countries, the roads, okay, they are made, but then they were also made up of stone, but the pavements were actually made out of stone. The stone will become more cold and faster. So what happens is, if you walk on cold stone on the pavement, then the feet, they will catch the cold very easily, and you have to compulsory wear shoes to keep your feet warm, so that rest of the body, that heat is conserved in that and passes on to the top, and if you have shoes you will feel less cold. Now here she is not having any shoes. She is not even having stockings. Stockings, they go right from the toe up to the thigh level, so that whole of the stocking, it's woolen stocking, so it keeps whole of the leg warm. She doesn't have shoes, she doesn't have stockings, and the little head is bare. Yes, cold winds. Yes, you must have seen when you were young, your parents used to make your head cover, your ears cover, because you feel the cold from there, and you might catch cold or fever because of that. So the feet is bare without any shoes. She doesn't even have stockings to keep her legs warm, and on top of that she doesn't have anything warm to wear on the head, and the head is bare. Bare means without any cover. Pluck out my other eye and give it to her. Now this thing cannot be done by the little swallow, because the little swallow thinks that भाई एक आँख तो कल दे दिया, आज भी एक आँख देने से the prince will go blind, right? And the father will not beat her. If you pluck out that other sapphire and give it to her, then the father will be very, very happy to see a very precious stone, because the small girl, we cannot expect to go to the jeweler, sell that. The jeweler is not going to buy it. The jeweler will just take away that sapphire and drive away that little girl, right? So the girl is going to give that precious glass piece, because for the girl is too young to understand these precious things. So for the girl, it's a shiny colored glass piece, and perhaps thinks the father will become happy. But the father knows the difference between a glass piece and a precious stone or a gem. So the father will not beat, because now she has brought in lots of money. Now again, without question, as soon as the condition or the situation is kept in front of the little bird also feels pity and is ready to help, and she forgets, the little bird, it forgets about the approaching winter. It forgets that it wants to go to Egypt, and it's ready to help the prince. I will stay with you one night longer, but I cannot pluck out that eye, this last eye. दो ही आए होता है, लेकिन एक आँख तो चला गया, that is the last one, right? So I cannot pluck out your eye, you would be quite blind then. So prince, like always, does not hear to what the little bird has to say. It just the prince just tells the bird, you do what I say to you. Yes, I command you to do it. So the bird plucked out the prince's other eye and darted down with it, and in order to help out the prince. It did not want to, but the happy prince is ordering the bird to take out the last eye, the second eye, and give it to the girl. So it plucks out the blue sapphire from the prince and darts means flies in haste towards the little girl. He swooped past the match girl. We have seen birds swooping down. It spreads the wings and glides slowly. So that is that swooping match girl, and slipped the jewel into the palm of her hand. By swooping very near, it just flies past the little girl, and during that action it puts the jewel in the hand of the little girl, palm of the little girl. What a lovely bit of glass. As we discussed, she is too young to identify that glass piece as a precious gem. So for her, it's just a sparkling, shining bit of glass. What a lovely bit of glass, cried the little girl, and she ran towards her home happily, laughing, because now she has something to give to her father, and so the father will not beat her. Then the swallow came back to the prince and says something very, very important. What is that? The little bird says, you are blind now, you can't see. So how are you going to see the condition of your city? Because you can't see. I have plucked both your eyes. They were those precious sapphires. I plucked them out and gave it to poor people to whom you directed me. But now, how will you know the state of your city? So I have left the thought of going to Egypt. I will stay with you always. You don't have eyes, but now I have eyes. So I will sit on your shoulder whole of the day, and I'll tell you what's going on in the city. And because you can't see, so with three actions. First the ruby, then the first sapphire and the second sapphire. By doing this acts of kindness, the bird gets so much attached with the happy prince that now it knows that the prince without eyes will be quite desperate to know the condition of the city, and the prince will not be able to see anything. So now it becomes his duty. The little bird, has now become the best friend of happy prince, and now it doesn't want to go away from there. The little bird is now so much courageous. It's more courageous than lion, because here is the quality, the rare quality of giving sacrifice, which is not that easy to get. It is ready to sacrifice itself because it knows very soon it will be snowing around here, and in that snow it cannot survive and it will die. It's ready to die, but it is not ready to leave the prince in a blind state. So, you are blind now, the little bird says, and I will always stay with you till my end is near, till I am dead, I will be with you. No, little swallow. Now the prince says, I don't have eyes. Yes, now I can't look at the city, but you have your whole life in front of you. You are alive. I am just a statue. Yes, but you are alive. You have your dreams of going to Egypt. So you go towards your destination. Yes, you achieve your target of going over there and be with your friends. No, little swallow, you must go to Egypt. Now all your work, whatever I commanded to you, you have done it. So now I command you to go. But now, until now, the little swallow was obedient. Now it is not obeying the happy prince because it thinks about the happy prince in a very good way. It wants to help out the happy prince. So, no, I will stay with you always, said the swallow, and without even listening to what the prince has to say, it just flew down near its feet, and taking the shelter of the feet, it went to sleep. He slept at the prince's feet. And the next day, he sat on the prince's shoulder and told him stories of what he had seen in the strange lands. So now it became habitual, it became routine that in the morning the little swallow, it would fly and come and sit on the happy prince's shoulder, and it will tell whatever it sees in front of it, and it can also fly. That is an added advantage that the happy prince has, that the bird cannot see far away. So the bird can fly all over the city, gather stories, come back to the happy prince and tell the stories back to the happy prince of whatever is happening in the city, of what is the condition of the people of the city. Dear little swallow, you, said the happy prince, you tell me of marvelous things, but more marvelous than anything is the suffering of men and women. Because to differentiate human being from birds and animals, a very good blending is used by the author over here. That is what separates us from the rest of the creatures of the world. The bird, it can just gather stories, and it will come back and tell all the stories to the happy prince. But the happy prince is concerned only with the suffering of the people. From the stories told by the little swallow, it will take out only those parts where people are suffering. That is important to him, because the happy prince wants to help people now. It wants to bring out the people from the suffering. So Says, you tell me lots of marvelous things, but the most beautiful things are the suffering of men and women. Those are the most marvelous things I want to hear, which will tell me, because I am blind now, I cannot see, but with the help of your stories, I gather the parts. They are marvelous because they tell me about the suffering of the people and they tell me how to help them. There is no mystery so great as misery. Some of these authors, they have written some very beautiful lines in their works. One of these lines that has made history in the writing is, there is no mystery greater than misery. Misery is a mystery. Even a very rich man, the richest man on the earth, he will be full of misery. And the most poorest person on the earth, he will be very happy. So it is a mystery why a rich man is full of misery and जो person misery में होना चाहिए, he is happy because he is content, right? So these are the mysteries of misery. Why a person is feeling misery, is feeling regret, sorriness, is unhappy, is not in a state of good mind, sound mind, because he is going through some misery. And just by looking at them, we cannot say that this man is suffering. He might be giving a smile on his face, but inside he is feeling quite miserable. There are no reasons with which can know, there are no ways to know why a person is being suffering with misery. So misery is one of the greatest mysteries of life. Fly over my city continuously, my little swallow, and tell me what you see there. So the swallow flew over the great city and saw the rich making merry in their beautiful houses. Here we see the way Oscar Wilde is taunting the world with the help of his work. Yes, rich people, they are making merry, they feel happy, and they are having parties in their beautiful houses while the beggars are sitting at the gates. Rich are having so much that they need to spend, whereas another person is sitting at the gate, he is not having a single penny in his hand, and he is begging for alms so that he can get some money to feed his family or himself. He flew into dark lanes and saw the white faces of starving children. Another very beautiful line written by Oscar Wilde. Because we are in Europe, the white-skinned people, but the little swallow is flying through dark alleys, dark lanes, streets, back alleys, the backside of the house, on both the sides, they fall in a very small street that's called alley. In that alley, because homeless children, there are lots and lots, and during those times there were lots and lots of homeless children. They were white people, so they can be seen very easily in darkness also. So here a contrast of dark and white, black and white is given. That alley will be dark, it will be black, but in that blackness also you can see the faces of those innocent white children, white faces of starving children. Just the children, they are starving, they are hiding themselves in the alleys, क्योंकि बाहर रहेंगे तो पुलिस पकड़ के ले जाती है, right? So those children are hiding, they are starving, yes, looking out listlessly at the black streets. They are just sitting over there and they are roaming around in that black street. Their white faces can be seen, their hungry white faces can be seen. This is the misery of the town. Under the archway, must have seen some old picture where a bridge is over the small river. Arcs say bridge banta hai, right? So below the archway, two little boys were lying in each other's arms. Maybe they are brothers, maybe they are friends. They are so young, but they do not have proper warm clothes on them. At night it becomes too cold and they do not have even a blanket to cover them to keep them warm in that night. So they are clinging to each other so that they can have each other's body warmth and survive and live for the next day. That is what the little swallow goes and tells the happy prince. They are in each other's arms to try and keep themselves warm. Such is the sorry state of your city. Such is the bearing of the poor people of your city. This is what is happening in this city. And how hungry we are, they said. They are saying to each other, we are very hungry. Food is warmth. If you have enough belly full of food in your stomach, that will give warmth to the body. But here, two things are totally absent. First, they do not have warm clothes or blankets. Second, their bellies are empty. So they cannot fight with the cold. How hungry we are, they said. And on top of that, a policeman, a watchman comes with his stick and tells the boys, you can't stay here. You must not lie over here in open space. You are not supposed to lie over here to keep the safety and security of the people. Disappear from here. So even the people, the little children, they are clinging into each other's arms so that they can keep warm and stay alive. Somebody does not even allow them to do so. That means people are not ready to allow the children also to survive in this cold, harsh climate. Rather than giving them a blanket, they are driven over from there, shouted the watchman, and they wandered out in the rain. Outside it is rain and snow. That means winter has already arrived, and the rain is icy cold rain which is showering from the sky. And because they were trying to find shelter to keep themselves dry, and they were clinging to each other so that they can keep warm, but the policeman does not allow them to stay over there, and he drives those children out of the archway of the bridge, and now they are running away in the rain and they are making themselves more miserable. Then he flew back and told the prince what he had seen. So the little swallow keeps on flying all over the cities and gathers stories like this and comes back to the prince in the night and tells him all the stories. Students, we'll stop over here for the day. Thank you, students.